security. Y'all might as well throw me out this bitch right now.
Lost generation. I had an epiphany while I was working on one of my trucks. I have been ignorant this whole time. So, since I'm a lowly, non-college educated man, I had an epiphany. Maybe I need to revisit these gender studies. Found out some interesting things. Excuse me for being a little sick at the moment. Now, we'll get to why I actually need notes on how to express my own gender and sexuality. But I did a little research tonight, and I found out this is the breakdown. I'm allosexual, which means I do experience sexual attraction. And I am gynosexual, which means I prefer feminine gender presentation. But this is where it gets a little bit murky, because every snowflake is unique. So I'm actually polysexual, because I could potentially be attracted to a binary female, a questioning femme, or a trans masculine. Now, let me clear up what a trans masculine is. Trans masculine is a female at birth that is non-binary, so they don't feel they're either male or female. And they do identify as masculine. So that could cover a broad range of things, but the main anchor point there is that they have a vagina, whatever they identify as, on that spectrum. I don't want to get anything wrong here. This is complicated stuff. So then I got looking a little bit more, and I can be considered demisexual and peri-orientated, but it gets kind of confused. So, demisexual is where you tend to have an emotional bond with someone you have sexual attraction to, which is mostly the case. Now, if I was dealing with a questioning femme or a binary female, typically I'd like to have that emotional bond. But if there was a trans masculine, and let's say they have physical identity with male characteristics, so they're wearing male clothing, their face looks kind of like a male after whatever they've done to feel comfortable with their gender, then I would only feel a potential sexual attraction if, let's say, they removed their pants and I saw the female vagina presented to me. So it gets a little hazy there, but a lot of things could happen. So peri-orientated is where you line up romantic and sexual attractions. Now, I would be peri-orientated with a binary female or a questioning femme. However, I would not be with a trans masculine. Okay? That gender presentation on the masculine side of the spectrum would kind of rule out the romantic attachment. So that would also kind of shoot a hole in the demisexual theory. So it gets a little confusing, a little hazy, but there's a lot of things to be going on. Basically, the anchor point is I like the female vagina, okay? I always just thought I was heterosexual, but really I have discovered that I'm pansexual, because if I potentially had a sexual relationship with a trans masculine who is non-binary, they could be on the whole spectrum of genders. So I can't just limit myself to the female gender. I am now pansexual, because if I found myself attracted to a trans masculine with a vagina and I had sexual relations with the trans masculine, I would in fact be pansexual. That's food for thought. So I got thinking about this, and there's a couple things I want to sum this up with. First of all, that's all kind of confusing, so I did a little bit more research. And what I found out is I'm actually novigendered. Now, what is novigendered? a gender that is super complex and impossible to describe. That is how special I am. I am the most unique snowflake I have encountered. So let's talk a little bit about pronouns. Pronouns are very confusing. You've heard the zir, the here, and all that stuff. I have simplified it. I've made it so simple for you guys. Okay, here's the pronouns. Him or he. Either one, you can just say God. Okay, now if there were several of me, which there's not, because I'm Novigendered and I'm unique, I'm so unique, you can't even describe it. But if there were multiple of me, the correct term would be deities. So if you saw 2 or 3 of me hanging out, you'd say those deities. If you just saw me, you'd just say God. And it simplifies it because he and him can both be substituted for God. I'm going to the beach with God. God is cool. See what I'm saying? Very simple. It just simplifies it all. But that's not where it ends, okay? So I did indeed discover there is a gender called bigender. Now that doesn't mean bisexual. That means you feel like you're the male and female gender at the same time. So you take those binary genders and you experience them simultaneously, okay? And now I think that I could be bigender because I do a lot of male things. I am gynosexual. I like vaginas. But if it came down to competing in female sports, if I were bigender, I could compete in female sports. Now, you know, I might have a little bit of a physical advantage in the combat sports like boxing and MMA, so I'd probably leave those out. But there's actually ancient Greek wrestling called Pele. Now, I don't know if you know this, but the Greek wrestlers, they wrestled nude, okay? So I would be able to compete with female wrestlers and we'd wrestle in the nude. But don't worry, there's no sexual connotation because in the rules, grasping of the genitals is actually against the rules. So there would be no sexual thing going on here. I would just be a male-like god bigender wrestling with a binary female who may or may not even understand that they could be a whole gender spectrum. Okay? So there's no grasping of the genitals, whether feminine or masculine genitals. But here's the other part. If you break the rules, the referee whips you until you stop breaking the rules. So, you know, I had a big epiphany tonight, and you know, I started researching the gender spectrum, and man, I'm blown away. I'm blown away. You know, I discovered a lot about myself. And I didn't even have to go to college to do it. And I would recommend that you go on this journey of discovery as well. This is Lost Generation. I'm out.